Welcome everyone to our monthly office hours here at AEDY. We're happy you're here. We are lucky today to have a presentation by one of our programs. So we're always glad to have those to hear what others are doing in AEDY and what's working. So today's topic is formal periodic reviews, behavioral assessment, goal development, and progress reporting. We have myself, Bethany Seidella, here from the AEDY team, as well as Jess Keener-Haas, who are our state lead here at PaTTAN. And Michael Stegmeyer is here as well. And I'm sorry if I'm remiss in missing anyone else from the team here, but we thank you for being here today. Yeah, so the mission of the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network is to support the efforts and initiatives of the Bureau of Special Education and to build the capacity of local educational agencies to serve students who receive special education services. Our goal for each child is to ensure individualized education program teams begin with the general education setting with the use of supplementary aids and services before considering a more restrictive environment. So we want to start with our matrix. I know many of you have seen this before, but every tier one MTSS, we should have a matrix, and students should know the expectations, and those should be very clear when coming in. So we want to model that for all of our programs here today. So our expectations here today, to be responsible. We know that everyone will attend to today's presentation and ask questions that are related to the content of the presentation today. We also want to make sure that we're limiting any distractions and mute the mics when we're not talking. And very importantly, use very general scenario questions, not about specific students or incidences. We all know that sometimes those incidents come up that you might have a specific, unusual question, and it's always okay to reach out to one of the team members if it's more specific to your building or to a specific student. And our expectations of ourselves as our AEDY team here in supporting you today is to facilitate the presentation and further discussion related to our AEDY topics, and to look for and identify some common questions and address our responses to you, and consider questions that we're getting from a lot of programs, and provide training and follow up if we're seeing some common questions from our programs. So thank you for being here today, because this is really how we informally do collect that information from you and move ahead with training and what's needed out there in the field. So today's agenda, it's a very short agenda. It's going to be very much not us talking to you, but again, as I stated earlier, hearing from people doing this work. We'll start with a very short discussion of our behavior assessment, and then a share out from one of our programs. And then we will end it with a question and answer. So if you have any questions as we go through the presentation here today, please save those for the end, because we will have an opportunity for you to ask those questions and have them be heard. And we will be utilizing the Jamboard today. And just keep in mind that that Jamboard is always anonymous, and we can't tell which program's asking a question. So it's a nice way to, in a risk-free way to ask questions, and other programs will probably appreciate, because a lot of times they do have those same questions and things that they're dealing with. So we will start with a little bit of talk about the behavior assessment. So we want you to consider, of course, what behavior assessment you have. And again, consider, I know there have been some programs that we've worked with in the last few months that have, begun considering if they're really getting the best results from their behavior assessment that they want. And the way you're getting those best results is it resulting in creating goals that are helping those kids to transfer out of that program and the time frame needed and make those goals. So a few things to consider, of course, is your needs to be for students grade 6 through 12. And what are you looking for? Are you looking for the internalizing or externalizing behaviors, or both? We want to consider things like training and costs of the behavior assessment, how to house the data, and reporting that data to all the stakeholders, and also who will be providing the information in the behavior assessment. As we know, it has to be done within 5 days of placement, which is a tier 1 practice in all AEDY programs. And I know we did discuss behavior assessments in many of our office hours over the last few months. So if your program is having trouble, coming up with measurable goals, it's something you want to consider, how you're utilizing that behavior assessment and what you're doing. So also you want to consider how you're sending LEA and the program, how you're all coordinating on the administration of that behavior assessment. And we want to brainstorm some ideas here today on ways to best coordinate the administration of behavior assessment so that everyone has a voice and we're getting the best information about that student from everyone involved. So we are going to jump right into our Jamboard here. And I have Jess helping me out with getting that Jamboard information in there for you. And I'm just going to pull mine up here too. Let's see here. Okay, so our Jamboard, get this here. So we are going to share how our sending schools and programs can coordinate for accurate behavior assessment results. So if you looked at on the left of the Jamboard, we'll put that in the chat box for you here. Let me grab that. I'll put that, unless Jess already did. Let me see. Oh, she did. Good. So if you go into the chat box, the Jamboard link is in there. And on the left side, you'll have your Post-it notes, or if you want to put a sticky in there, however you want to engage with the Jamboard is just fine. But take some time, and we'll take just really 3 or 4 minutes here, but we just want to see your ideas and what's working with the in your programs, as well as hear from the sending LEAs on how you are coordinating the behavior assessments.
So if you're new to Jamboard, you want to click on the sticky note right here, and it will create a sticky note. And then you type in your note, you can pick your color, and then it will submit.
I see some people in there, so. Okay, we'll give just about 30 more seconds for people to put up their ideas for coordinating the behavior assessment. Looks like they're coming in now. Well, thank you for all for sharing, and please feel free to continue to add there. It looks like we have some really good ideas for coordinating the behavior assessment, which is so important. Teacher from the sending school completes the pre-assessment and submits the referral, and then the program completes the post-assessment. So that's helpful from the sending LEA side, knowing the student and providing that information to the program. Also, it looks like one of our programs here, the parents receive a packet with the behavior assessment. So getting that parent input as well is so important. And then the teachers also have the rating form, and that information is shared out. And I'm thinking that would be during that initial placement meeting, the initial FPR. We also have AEDY team will meet with the sending LEA and the sending school to discuss those results. And that is where the goals are formulated. And then I'm having trouble reading this one here, but it looks like the school counselors review, okay, why they were, thank you, sent and communicates with the homeschool's administration and the counselors and social workers involved as well. So these are all good ways to get and collect information from all the stakeholders and everyone involved in the student referral from both the sending and the program side to ensure that you have the whole picture and as much information as needed to drive those goals and really look for and formulate meaningful goals. We know in AEDY, many students are referred for things such as, drugs, alcohol, and things like that. And the useful thing with the behavior assessment and creating those goals, we're creating goals beyond students won't bring drugs to school or do drugs. We're creating goals that really look into that root cause to help support our students. It looks like another one just came in here with based on your relationships with the sending schools and that communication. So thank you so much for everyone who is very brave to share how you coordinate with that behavior assessment, which is really one of the things that makes AEDY different, that behavior assessment piece. So we will move on now, and we have that was a very good, useful and helpful lead into our special guest. Coming up next, we are very thankful and appreciative to have Berks IU 14 here today to share what is working for them with the sending school, and they're collecting information and intervention information in order to make a plan for student success. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves and talk about what's working in their program.
Morning, everybody. My name is Andrew. I am one of the school counselors here at Berks IU, our AEDY program, Learning Academy at Thomas Ford. I'm also here with our principal, Jesse Bishop, and one of my other colleagues, Miss Jessica Bailey. We also have a third counselor who's right now in class and covering for us. So, but yeah, there are 3 of us on staff. So we're going to talk about a couple of things. I'll lead in since we were talking about the behavior assessment. We had used in the past the BASC-3. We currently use the STQ, which is the Students' Strengths and Difficulties Questionnaire. And what we do is for intakes, when students come to us, we sit down, we have the parents come in. We require a parent or guardian to be there with the student, and we have them fill the STQ out right there. So the student will do their self-report, and the parent or guardian will also do their piece of the STQ. But then we also have some other questions as part of the intake paperwork where we get some other background to just build that picture for the student so we know how to build their behavior goals. In our program, we do have a counseling class that's built into our schedule. So every day of the week, they have a 42-minute class that's counseling. Throughout, forgive me, I moved from my desk, so I don't have all my papers in front of me, but every day of the week, we do a different topic. So Monday, we usually do a check-in with students. We do grades, attendance, behavior, and we'll also do like a career project with them if time permitting. Tuesdays, we do aggression replacement training, ART, or some other mental health topic. Wednesdays, help me out, guys, I forget.
Making and moral reasoning.
Decision-making, moral reasoning, or again, another mental health piece. Thursdays, thank you, Ms. Bailey.
Yep.
Thursdays, we usually do some sort of drug and alcohol or drug topic. And then Friday, we usually do a mindfulness activity or something to just kind of reset for the weekend, or make up work for the week if a student wasn't there during any of the other days. So we have a set curriculum. Again, sometimes we're flexible based on some of the needs of the student, but we try to hit those on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. Do you guys want to jump in? Did I miss anything on that?
Nope, you hit that one.
Okay, awesome.
And you have, just to jump in, you have 3 counselors on site, correct?
Yes.
We do. We have 3. So we break it up by kind of like age group. So we have middle school, and then Miss Bailey and I split high school.
And as the counselors, we are the ones that do the intakes, we do the discharges, and we come up with all the behavioral goals so the teachers can just focus on teaching.
So let me go over kind of what let me share my screen here. And I'm not expecting you to just read everything on the screen. I'm going to summarize it. We kind of have our checklist for what we do in that initial intake where we have the SDQs completed. We get more background information from the student family. And we also have another little self-assessment that we have the student complete that's basically giving us feedback on things like classes that are the strongest, classes that are their weakest, what specific things they feel like they need help with here. So again, that helps us build that picture of what their behaviors goal is going to look like. So in our intakes, we kind of explain the morning routine, their check-in, what happens there, what the daily routine looks like. Breakfast, they get escorted to classes, lunch, escorted to other classes, and then dismissed at the end of the day. We review the dress code. We talk about our positive behavior support plan, which is our night program, the privileges they get, how they achieve that. We also get them signed up for a Remind app, which helps us communicate with them, bus stops, et cetera, that sort of thing. To help us, the 3 of us, counselors, kind of make sure we're getting everything hit. We have our orientation checklist. So this is when we're meeting with students. We review kind of the routine for the day, classroom norms, hallway norms, dress code, that sort of thing. We follow up with the SDQ if they haven't completed it, or we talk to them about it. We also talk with them about their behavior goals and that student assessment sheet that I was mentioning earlier. Again, just to help us understand how to help them and get them back to their sending school and be successful. Again, we go over that night packet, positive behavior support plan. We look at what the points look like throughout the day, that sort of thing. And then finally, we just have a checklist. There's some redundancies here, but we have a checklist here finally for what every student file for counseling will have to make sure that we haven't missed anything. And also to remind us for that FPR to upload that within the first 5 days that they're here. So I know that's kind of fast, but I just wanted to at least give you that visual. Let's see, and then fast forwarding to the end of their time, when we have their review at the end of their time with us, we have a review meeting with our liaison with our school district. We go over, all the big pieces of information, their attendance, their goals, their grades with him. And then we also set up a transition meeting. It could be that same meeting, or it could be different depending on availability. But we set up a meeting with the assistant principal at the receiving school, the one that sent the student to us, and also their school counselor, social worker, any special ed staff, anything that needs to be done, kind of as a warm handoff to them to share what's been working, what they still need to work on if they started maybe school-based, and that's going to continue when they go back, school-based therapy. And then we also try to visit once they go back, we try to visit with our students about once a month. The 3 of us try to go back and visit with them, check in, see how things are going, how they've been working since going back on the things that they've developed with us. Maybe Ms. Bailey can speak to that. She was there just recently, and it's really neat to see the smile on some students' faces when they see.
So as of yesterday, we had a very successful transition back, and administration always asks the kids, what worked for you at Thomas Word that doesn't work, you know, here? And their answer is always the same. It's the counseling piece. The fact that they get the counseling classroom and they get individuals really helps them. But when we go back to visit them, and I was just there Monday, I went to the high school to go visit with our kids, and it is such a relief for them. And only because, you know, the high school is really big and all us as counselors need support at some point. So the fact that they are coming from a school that they were very successful and they still get that piece with us, that they can still be successful. And a lot of the administration is very supportive of that. We even have students that if they're having a rough day, they will ask for us, and we will have the administration email us and say, can they Zoom with you? Can they talk to you? And we will make time to meet with them because it helps them get through the day. The Remind app is a big piece. We had started that during the pandemic, which helped a lot. And now we just keep it in place. We have a Remind classroom for the parents and a Remind classroom for the students that are separate, and it's confidential, and it's helped parents tremendously communicate with us. It will translate in different languages for the parents that anybody can communicate then, and you can keep in contact on how they're doing. That constant communication piece though is always what the kids will go to say, like, that's their favorite thing was counseling, that they can, sometimes we don't get to the lesson and sometimes they want to talk about something that happened, and it's a venting session, but it's a learning experience for them, and they just vent, and that's what we'll get through. We'll talk about it, and they say they love counseling because then they can get whatever is on their chest off, and it makes them feel better throughout the day, along with the fact that they can ask for counselors throughout the day, and we will come for them and make the time for them to sit with them. So again, their answer is always the same. When administration says what works for you there that's not working here, they always say the counseling piece of talking about. And we added this year the mental health topics, and they absolutely love it. The students have gotten very familiar with different diagnoses, and now themselves are saying like, hey, like you talked about this in class, and I'm a little concerned because I felt like this, or these are things that have happened. And it's opened up a big world for them to be comfortable enough that understanding that they need help, besides the in-house counseling piece, like whether it's Malvern, whether it's we find a place for them outside of there, or if it's something is they're realizing their parents need help. So they ask us to talk to their parents and all that. So that mental health piece that we added has been a huge success for us on our end. So as far as, do you want me to just keep going? I can talk about the transition back. Besides, so when it comes to the transition meeting, like Mr. Jay had said, we do our informal review in-house, and once we know they're successful, we will reach out to the administration, their social workers or counselors, and set up a via Zoom meeting. And part of that is the student is with us when we set up that meeting, and they are talking with their administrator, their social worker, their school counselor, and we're all as a team talking about what succeeded for that student, how it worked. They talk to the student themselves, and they'll ask the student, like, what's going to change when you come back? And the student will talk about, this is, what I learned. This is what they do. This is what worked here for us. And we send them back, and we communicate them with those VPs and school counselors as the kid is still transitioning back with them. And then if there's a situation maybe that comes arise, the VP will reach out to us. Can you talk to this kid? Or if they know one of us is coming up shortly, they will specifically say, can you pull this kid and talk to them? So that transition piece has been huge. We started that probably 2 years ago. I want to say that we started going back. We put that into our program, and it has been very successful. And Writings administration has very much appreciated us doing that with them. The other thing is we share the formal reviews for them, and anything that has helped them here, we share those documents with them, so they can see the steps in the process that is working for them. And I don't know, Mr. J, do you want to show them that what we've included with in the AEDY process for us, what we share with them? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the one thing that we had just started to as well is when we get them, we take the AEDY piece of what the school district has done with them as far as interventions, suspensions, anything that they have done with them. That's the sending school. We start to put that in that piece for them. And then again, that comes right from ADY, whatever the school says. And then if the VPs, the school counselors, social workers give us any more information, we add it in there on the intervention, excuse me, that they have done with them. And then if you want to scroll down, Mr. J, for us, we add in our MTSS tier 1 to show, this is what they're going to work with us. And then we individualize what we're also going to work on them based on their assessments from their parents, themselves. We privately do an individual because we have learned if you let them do the assessments in front of their parents, they're not truthful. So we have them do the assessments with us individually and talk, and we have a different assessment we do with them. I don't know, Mr. J, if you have a copy of that electronically, but they have a questionnaire that they answer, and it's questions that are private for them. And they just have to say basically they need help with it or they don't need help with it. And we've learned if we do it with them, they're more honest and we can help them. So we use the parents' assessment, the student assessment, their questionnaire, and what the sending school has told us to come up with their goal in order to make sure that they're successful all together, and what behavior goals we set for them, that it's very individualized for them. And then some kids, it's a daily assessment. Some kids, it's a weekly. It just all depends on what they were sent to us. And I know Mr. J is looking for that. There we go.
Yeah, here you go. This is what I had mentioned
So
earlier.
this is what we came up in MTSS. So and then I talked to my colleagues about it because I'm the MTSS school counselor. There was we were missing pieces that kids still needed help with but didn't know how to verbalize. So we came up with this, and we tell them be as honest as you can, and it's confidential. It stays in their counseling folder. It does not go in any of the ADY information or back to the sending school. And they just answer the question. And if they need help, they mark it. If they don't need help, they mark it, and they can put comments if needed. And this has been a huge, huge piece. And then we take this information and the need to know stuff. We have a document for our teachers then that basically says what their strengths and their weaknesses are, why they were sent to us, and what career path they're kind of working on in the moment. And we use bits and pieces from here. When the students understand that nobody is going to see this but their counselor and them, they are very honest with it and 100% with it. And it has made a big difference for them when they come here. Do you want to show a snapshot to them what our teachers get? A blank one. Thank you.
Sure.
So then the information that we learn about them goes on what's called a teacher snapshot. It's on a drive for all our teachers that they can access at any time. Because we also have what's called the night program here. And a night program is a privilege process for them. And what it is for 15 days, they have to come to school, no discipline referrals. Their behavior has to be at a 90%, I believe, or above, Mr. J. Is that correct? Or is it 95? I think it's 90 or 95. Their percentage has to be. And if they do that for 15 days straight, no absences, 95. No absences. If they are absent, they have to have an excuse from a parent. They get certain privileges back, like they get to wear a hoodie or they may get to wear jewelry. They get special days, like there might be a night day where they're excused from class and kind of get to hang out, play games and that kind of stuff. And it's a huge program here around here. And our nights that become nights then become mentors to the kids that are new coming in and get to sit and talk with them. And their night mentor, which can be any teacher, any counselor, security guards, anybody in the building they have a good rapport with, they're met up, they're paired with, and they go over this information, the snapshot that is given to them, which is why they were here, what their goals are, what their strengths are, what they need to work on, and it goes from there.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find one that's
okay.
blank, but I can't find a blank one right now.
Let me see if I can.
I can only find ones that have all the information, and
right.
I want to try and find something that's confidential.
I know I have a blank one. Let me pull it up here. 1 second.
So I'm the administrator here at the Learning Academy, and just so everyone's aware, like this is a process for us. Like the questionnaires and everything, we've developed this and changed this over time to kind of tailor to our students' needs and what we're looking for in goals. So like maybe a year ago, we talked about strengths and weaknesses, and then it's like, well, why don't we just make a worksheet and then have the kids fill it out and we can help them develop their goals. So it just wasn't like voila, like it just appeared one day. So I think that's important to understand is this is a process, and we're still evolving, and we're not going to stop evolving. You know, that's the way it's going to work. And the three-headed monster, as I call them, they truly do work very hard at putting all this together and getting to know the students. So just throw that in while you guys were looking for that.
I'm trying to share my screen, but it's not letting me, so I can show the snapshot. It's telling me the host is not. I don't know. Mr. J, if you can still share, it is under our the snapshots for the teachers, and there's a blank one right in the beginning.
Snapshots.
While you're waiting, we do have a question. I don't know. If
Yes,
you-
yes. Quick
Mr.
question.
Solomon.
I might pause. I like to start with that. The internet connection goes in and out, so I might
Okay.
pause, guys. What was the catalyst, right, for you guys moving from BAS 3? I know I can already hear some of the points that you're making, but what was the thing that got you to move from BAS 3 to the SDQ? And if you guys could just expand on what you think some of the benefits of that is. Just from hearing you speak already, I'm getting a understanding of what but just your perspectives would be a little bit more. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. There you go.
Is it Mr. J, are you taking that since you had started that for all of us? Because I know you were doing the training
sure.
with it.
Sure, I can take it. I think the initial catalyst for us switching actually was our program director. And I think one of the big things that sold her was you could get multiple informants to speak into that. I think that was the one thing that sold her. It's also a lot shorter than the BASC 3. So that was another thing that we found. There were a lot of students that they would complete the BASC 3, but we were wondering if they were really taking it seriously by the end. So I think a lot did a nice job with it, but we also like the SDQ because it is shorter, and it's simplified. So
I do, and I know we can maybe find it. We'll get an example. The nice thing about the SDQ is it gives you two different types of results. The one is a very nice colorful scale result, and the black and white one, basically, I know with the BASC, it kind of went right to DSM-5, whereas the SDQ gives us like where their high and low risk are, and it'll break down when you have the parent fill it out and the student, it breaks down where the parent sees them at, and then it breaks down where the student sees them at. And it's kind of nice to see sometimes where the parents' version is of them, and then where the students is of them. And that's what we use. And it took us a little bit to get used to, but it is shorter. And now that we're used to it, it's a very easy process. You're just clicking away as, you know, whatever their answers were. And I absolutely like the results. And when you get the results, their names aren't on it. So if that paper were to, if something would happen, it's confidential all the way. It comes up with a special name or number, but their specific name isn't on it. And they're like code name, and it'll say something like Purple Lily. We're only us are able to see that on our end, who that belongs to, but nobody else can see their results. So that confidentiality piece is really nice too. And some of the kids even question, like, I don't want nobody to know this is me. So I've showed them, like, look, this is how it comes up and nobody knows you. So it makes them be more honest about it when they do it. Because I've said some kids where I can see they just kind of checked mark. And then when I'm like, I see what you did, let's redo this. And you show them that they really like that nobody's going to know it's them on the answers. And then we do use it, we show it to them and go over their results on why. And when you explain to them, like, hey, it says here that you're at risk for, you know, having emotional distress. And when you explain what emotional distress is, they're like, oh, I do feel like that. So it's a very nice piece on how it breaks us down versus to boss just says, here's the DSM-5 of where they're struggling.
So let's do this since I have this up here so I don't give everyone whiplash.
Sure.
Since we were talking about the student snapshot, and then I'll take it down so I can get up one of the SDQ reports so you can kind of see a sample of it. So here's our confidential student snapshot that we pieced together from all the pieces that you're seeing that we use. So name, grade, the team they're on, kind of where they're at, very briefly why they're here, what their goal is, their behavior goal, and then just a couple pieces here just to help teachers kind of relate to that kid right away at the get-go. So it's just a one-sided piece. It's really short, but at least it gives them some information to get up to speed. So let me find that SDQ report for you. this should be good. All right, so this is an example of what one of them looks like. I'll show you the other report as well. But you can see at the top, it just has an age, female, right? And it says we have a parent and a self-report. So it's all just general information. So there's no identifying information on the actual report. The top piece here is the parent. It just gives score for overall distress, and it shows it's highlighted over here. You can see the bolded ones are elevated or too low. So the parent report, everything's in the average range. The student self-report actually shows slightly raised for overall distress, high mark for hyperactivity or concentration difficulties, and then very high for overall impact. So there's an impact statement on the SDQ that's asking, does this impact your life? Does it impact your friends, your family, your school? And so they have to rate all those different environments in their life, whether they feel like this distress is impacting. And then at the bottom, it gives, it says diagnostic predictions. It's a general prediction. So, chances for any disorder, very low. These are all low for the student. So there's also an alternative way of printing that report out. It's still the same information, but it's also more of a visual. So if you want the chart on the side, there's also some inquiries. This one has no lines of inquiry. So usually there's some points that pop up here that might say, hey, here's a suggestion, or keep an eye out for this. This one's pretty unremarkable in that stance. And her code is daring pugs. That's who that student is. So anything we missed that you wanted us to touch more on, or questions? I don't know how long you wanted this to go on.
No, thank you so much for all your sharing, not only your documents, but your time. I know everyone here was very engaged, and it was very relevant to everyone here today. So we appreciate Andrew, Jessica, Jesse, and your whole team there at Berks IU 14 for your time and your expertise in helping students. I mean, really, that counseling piece and how you add those extra minutes every single day. We know an AEDY has to be at least 2.5 hours a week. We all know with staffing issues and things like that these days, it's really smart to have some extra time in there with the staffing issues, and it helps our students, obviously, to have that extra. And it sounds like when they go back, that counseling piece is what they discuss, and a lot of times that is where they are able to achieve those goals. It's through that counseling piece. And I really think having the students articulate what worked for them is such an important piece. It's not just the adults talking about what's going on, it's having the students being able to do that. And I think that sometimes gets missed. So we appreciate that the hard work you're doing in engaging your families and your students with what worked, and that is why you are seeing the successful transitions back to their schools. And the check-in piece too is it's not easy, and I know it's a lot of time. And like I stated earlier, with the staffing issues and things like that, it's difficult, but it's definitely beneficial for our neediest, most vulnerable children throughout the state. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So if there are, our last part of today's session is just a open question and answer forum. Just like you were talking about the students always appreciating that confidentiality. We want to again model that because our students appreciate that, and we realize adults do as well. So this is an opportunity to utilize the Jamboard again for any questions that you might have from your program. So we're just gonna be here and be here for you if you have any questions. We'll utilize the Jamboard. We'll stay on for a few minutes here for you to formulate your questions, and we'll answer them as they come in. And if there aren't any questions right now, we're always here as you kind of consider them and moving forward. And again, utilize the Jamboard the same way. So you'll go to that second page of the Jamboard, whereas the first one was the behavior assessment. This one will be just click that arrow on the top right that's being highlighted right there on your screen and go to the second page of question and answer. And also, if you have any comments as well, yeah, feel free to share those on the Jamboard here today. And it's 11:11. We'll probably give about 5 minutes for this activity to come in with our question and answers.
If you'd like to share our contact in the chat for everybody, you're more than welcome to.
Great.
People want to reach out to us.
Mr. J, I'm going to ask you guys for your documents and provided in Schoology. I put it in the chat already because I had a lot of private messages to me asking for your documents. So we'll collaborate later to hopefully provide your resources if you and your team are okay with that for the field.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, we're seeing some questions come in here. If you don't mind, Andrew, would you be able to put your information in the chat box there? As I'm not having your, I don't have your email here.
So the special education student who is unilaterally placed for 45 days is making some academic progress, yet has not met behavioral goals. Do we still transition back? That is an IEP team decision that is to be determined by LEA based on that child's individual needs. AEDY is a temporary setting.
Thanks, Jess. Looks like we have another question here. If we develop more than one goal on the FPR, formal periodic review, does the student have to meet all of the goals in order to transition? Very good question, and we do get that one a lot. We always say that you don't have to have more than one goal on the FPR. It's up to the team. We would suggest, of course, the goals always have to be based on behavior. So again, that kind of goes back to your team, but at the time of the formal periodic review, you do have to have at least one goal, and the team will decide, on that based on the behavior assessment and the reason for placement. But we always say the other goals we would suggest, because collecting the data and the progress monitoring information on the goals, it's a lot of work. So we always suggest having the goal, and sometimes they do like to put secondary goals, some of our programs, but they will even put like in parentheses, this goal would not be able to keep the student in placement. And same with the academic goals. So hopefully that answers your question. But again, that's going to be your team's decision, but always one goal based on the behavior that has to be followed for the 45-day. We got a lot of comments in here from thanking Berks IU 14. Okay, well, we are coming up, you know, on our time here, so we are going to move it along. If you do have any other questions, please always feel free to reach out to a team member, which we're going to put our information up here in the next slide.
Sorry.
Fine. All right. Oh, there's our information there. If you have any questions, please always feel free to reach out to someone on our team.
Hi,
for
Bethany.
questions. Yes.
I'm sorry. We just need a little bit more clarification for the last question regarding the one goal, because I think we are kind of confused on, can we make more than one goal to keep kids here for to keep them from transitioning? Do you understand what I'm saying?
So it would be based
Under
on
the behavior, if there's 3 goals that are under the behavior of concern,
Mhm.
is that appropriate to keep them from sorry, my phone's ringing.
You,
Them from
okay.
transitioning to their homeschool?
You could have 1 goal, you could have 2 goals, you could have 3 goals. So that is, again, based on that behavior assessment. One thing I will say is it does have to be based on the information collected and the reason that student was placed there. So if the student was, let's say it's peer interactions, okay, just give an example. And that's the reason, that's what got them placed. It was something that came up in the 6 criteria, okay? And so you couldn't put a goal that doesn't relate back to that from the behavior assessment and the reason for placement, if that makes sense. It has to be based on that. So you can't just pick. So yeah, it could be 3 based on that same thing, but it couldn't be, you know, 1 based on that and then 2 more based on something else that has nothing to do with the reason they were placed, but still they're based on behavior.
So if you don't use them to hold the student in placement, you have the one that's attached to behavioral concern that Bethany was just talking about. That's the goal that's going to determine whether the child returns or not. But you want to work on other areas because you have concerns for the child as a whole. You can write in parens will not determine place, remaining in AEDY. We have places that put that in parens next to the goals that they aren't using to determine whether or not the student remains in placement.
Okay.
Minimally, you have to have one that relates to the behavior of concern to determine whether or not the child stays.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Okay, so again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us, and we will advance to the next slide to show you our remaining office hours for the year. We have one coming up here in April for MTSS, so please register for that. And we have one coming up in May for end of year reporting, which will be helpful to all our sending LEAs and programs. So please join our Schoology if you are not already. I know many of you are, most of you on this call are already engaged in Schoology, but all of the registration links for office hours and any webinars coming up are all are housed in there in Schoology. And it's very nice because when you come up on that first screen, like the most upcoming ones are right there for your registration. So register early so it's on your calendar, and we'll stay on for a few minutes here if there's any additional questions, but thank you again. Most special thank you to Berks IU for your support today and being very brave.
Thank you. You guys are welcome.